Thank you for being here, and thank all of you for coming. I'm a teacher and a senior English student, and when I have students come into my classroom, it blows my mind that at this age they cannot think for themselves. You know, they want you to spoon feed everything to them, and as I've seen this Common Core initiative come into play, I mean, I've heard a lot of negatives about it, which I agree there are some. I don't like the data mining. I don't like, you know, the fact that at some point they'll probably be telling us what curriculum to use and things like that. But we're focused on informational text, you know. We're focusing on getting them to read the text and actually think about what they're reading. And my students have to read essays and different types of articles. They have to formulate their own questions based on the depth of knowledge chart. So they really have to think about some pretty complex issues. They discuss them in the classroom. They have their own ideas about how this impacts them and, you know, their opinions, get into some discussion type things. And I think this is a great thing. I think that that's something that we should try to keep, you know, in all of this Common Core thing, is to make sure that they are trained to think for themselves. You know, to look at the different opinions on different writers, on different articles they read, evaluate them, be able to sort out the good from the bad. You know, in this day and age, there's so much information out there, so much more than when I was growing up, and they're going to have to be able to think on their feet, think for themselves, figure out what it is that they believe, and, you know, what the right thing is. Okay, now the issue becomes if they start feeding them the curriculum, then there's a danger in that. But I think, you know, the movement of the informational text and getting them to look at things themselves, to teach themselves, to, you know, research, all that kind of thing, I think it's great. But, you know, definitely sort the good from the bad and try to take the good out of it.
Okay, and Alan, were you going to have a question? Because we're going to make this our last one. Well, we have one more that wants to.
I just want to sort of question, comment.
It has to be really short because we've given a lot of leeway on
what she's saying about.
You need to come up.
Stand up. Use the microphone.
All right. Let's try to make it into a question.
I'll try to formulate a question. Is that Common Core? I'm a mom of two. Praise God in heaven above, my youngest just graduated from high school, an IB school, an IB program in Marion County. So both of my children will be in college next year. My daughter, who is my oldest, is already at Florida State, and her girlfriends, she has several girlfriends that are education majors. She saw some information in my car about Common Core, a lot of papers and flyers and things when I was up in Tallahassee one day visiting, and said, "Oh, Common Core! We're in my education classes. We're writing our curriculum, our lesson plans. Lesson plans. I said I'm not a teacher, so sorry about that. Our lesson plans to fit the Common Core. Folks, this is in our universities. Our education curriculum in our universities. Our new young teachers are being told to write their lesson plans in their college classes and in their college coursework to fit the Common Core." Sorry, no question.
Alan?
I don't want to make this a lecture, but well, I'm going to give my question first, okay, but I want to back it up. Are we really considering international standards in this program? And I'm not talking about European standards. I'm talking about Asian standards. And are we really challenging our children in this program? My background is mostly working in Asia, and my wife is a school teacher, and she's taught all over Asia. Every third world country in the world knows that their ticket out of poverty is education. We are descending into poverty because of a lack of education system. My personal feeling is, what I hear here tonight, the focus is on psychological parameters. I'm sorry, 21st century, the advancing nations are focusing, their competency focus is on math and science. We're talking about data mining and testing. The third world nations, they go to school in warehouses of 50 and 60 kids, but they're focused on discipline, drill, memories. I don't mean to pick on you, Jim, but you made this comment about reading, writing, and arithmetic are just the basics. I'm sorry. I think that is the fundamentals. That is the total focus. We're so concerned about creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. We want to develop entrepreneurs. For every entrepreneur that develops a great country, and every company, and we have a lot of them here, they need 100, 200, 300 programmers. Do you know where we get our programmers right now? Any day in Silicon Valley, they have 100,000 or more open requisitions for programmers. We're getting our programmers from India, from China, etc. You see business just fleeing this country. It's not so much for wages, it's because they don't have educated programmers, data analysts, etc. You look at our graduate schools. If it wasn't for the Chinese and the Indians, we wouldn't have any graduate schools today. 90% of the faculty is Chinese and Indians. You look at our engineering schools, undergraduate, over half of them now are foreign students. Our students can't even get in there. I think we're so focused on our students and on our children, and I'm a grandfather, and I'm really into my grandchildren, and my wife is a school teacher, and she's sensitive, but I think we have to get a focus on what's best for this nation. We're not going to survive as a nation if we don't start becoming competitive, and that has to be education. And I just don't see in this thing, we're so busy worrying about testing and evaluation to convince ourselves that we're doing a decent job. I think we have to get down to the basics and give our kids the skills that they need to compete, and more importantly, our country to compete. And if we don't compete, our kids are going to die. They're not going to have the kind of quality lifestyles that we've had. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Are we really looking at true international standards?
Yeah, I think we had that answer before.
It just shows the dilemma, because if we raise them too hard, the kids are going to have a bad experience, but if we don't raise them, we're going to get ass kicked. So what do we do?
Okay.
Common Core Math, according to James Milgram, one of the only academic mathematicians on the validation committee, puts kids 2 years behind their international peers by the end of 8th grade and farther behind by the end of high school.
Okay, what we're going to do is, for those of you that have hung in there, we're going to go ahead and let each panelist have a 3-minute period to wrap up and say the things that they want to say as a wrap-up, and then we'll call it a night. So, let's start here and we'll work our way down.
First of all, I want to thank the Republican Party for putting on this forum. I want to thank County Commissioner, Chairman, for what she's done here tonight. She's done an excellent job, and I also want to thank the folks on the panel. Whether you're a proponent of it or not, it opens up a discussion which needs to be discussed. And I appreciate also the folks out here tonight. There's a lot of teachers out here. I appreciate that, because it's something that you are concerned about as teachers. One of the things that I want to I just mentioned briefly is Common Core there are so many dynamics to this that has not even been discussed that are problematic in Common Core. The fact of the matter is, our education system, there's a huge challenge. We have challenges in our education system. There's no question about that. There's a quote, and many years ago, it was actually before my time, there was a quote that a leader said. He said this: "Never let a crisis go to waste." And Common Core education system, we are in a crisis. The teachers, from what I know about teachers, I have many friends who are teachers. My sister-in-law is a public school teacher. What I know about this system is teachers, they have the creativity. They know how to teach children. They know how to teach their students. But we have got to get out of their way and allow them to do their job. And Common Core is something that I think had great intentions. It's like that piece of corn. There's a lot of good things that are about Common Core. However, there are things that are in Common Core that is just not acceptable. We cannot accept. Number one, it's a federalization of our education system. That is not acceptable. That is unconstitutional. The second thing is the data mining. That is part of that. I'm sorry, it is part of Common Core. You can't get out of it. It is unconstitutional. It's unacceptable. And you cannot say, well, it's protected data. Well, let's talk about NSA or the IRS for just a moment. It is not protected. And the last thing that I want to mention about Common Core, and we have not mentioned, it is a humanistic philosophy. And the philosophy is this: that that man is inherently good. That is the philosophy that Common Core is built on. And what I'm talking about is this, very briefly. Man is not inherently good. If man is inherently good, what that would mean is we don't need keys for our cars. We don't need to have door locks. In fact, just go ahead and leave the keys in the car, because man is inherently good. Well, we know better than that. We know that man is not inherently good. So therefore, if you put things in place with the presumption that a man is inherently good, such as the data mining on our children, the psychological data mining, and those type of points, at some point, the good man that developed this is going to turn into an evil person, and that evil person will use this information for evil methods and means. Man is not inherently good. I'm sorry, folks. That's not the case. Therefore, we have a constitution that understood that man was not inherently good. They knew that government was not inherently good. In fact, what they did is they wrote a constitution that would protect man from the government. And when you break that, it flips our Constitution upside down, and it actually takes our Constitution and it says, our government is inherently good and man is inherently evil. And that is not what our Constitution was written on. Again, thank you folks for being here.
I too want to thank you. It's been a wonderful experience. Thank the panelists and thank all of you and our moderator. Randy summarized the issues with Common Core really well. We have problems of academic quality. We have issues of constitutionality and state sovereignty and local control. We have the transparency or lack thereof and the public involvement in the process is another big issue. Whether these are voluntary. These standards are voluntary. They voluntarily were adopted during a severe recession when states were desperate for money. It was an appointed state school board that adopted them when the legislature was not in session, without public hearing. And the hearing itself was public, but there was no explanation to the public beforehand. And no consultation with elected school board members or elected legislators.
Or voters.
Or voters, yes. The data privacy issues we've talked a lot about. Again, as a pediatrician and a mom, I'm going to bring up the early childhood part of this, because these standards are being aligned from K-12 down, and the big push in both the Race to the Top K-12 and the Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge is to expand early childhood programs, government home visiting, Head Start, and these programs have a huge, massive record of failure. They usurp parental authority and autonomy, and they're very costly and not a way that we want to go. And it ties into the socio-emotional, psychological manipulation and testing that I mentioned previously. So for all those reasons, we need to be concerned about Common Core. And I have some handouts at the end. One is a rebuttal to Senator Lake's column, and one is a rebuttal to a foundation rebuttal. So can pick your facts.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for coming tonight. I don't really agree with all the testing. I'm not sure, obviously there's some flaws with Common Core, but I sure don't want to keep on doing what we've always been doing. When half the kids that are graduating from college can't find work, and yet our companies that need engineers are so short on engineers they can't get enough. There's not enough visas to bring in enough Indian and Chinese engineers to fill the jobs. There's a big disconnect in the way we're doing things. The fact that we're trying to steer people towards being engineers instead of English majors has some sense to it, I think. I don't know if we're going to survive as a country, because if we don't have engineers, we're toast. The testing, I think, is insane. I think we shouldn't be doing it all. I guess Common Core is going to continue that. I don't know how we turn this ship that education has so much inertia, and it's heading this way. So we have this testing thing. Well, this, to me, may be worse. I don't know. If it is and it blows up and we stop doing the testing, then maybe that's where we need to go. But we need to be diligent and make sure that we don't get the data mining, make sure we don't get all this. I can't believe that textbook in Utah. That blew my mind. But I think we need to do something different from what we're doing. So, and how do you do that? Do we turn it over to Congress? Is that going to work? No. I mean, so if we come this far with it, can we do something with it to make it work to get us out of the rut we've been in? That we've been in really for 130 years. We've been doing the same system. I don't know, but what we're doing ain't working.
Did you ever hear of the McGuffey readers?
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah. But the world is changing so fast. I mean, nobody knew what an iPad was 5 years ago. There wasn't one 5 years ago. And what it can do is just amazing. And if you can see how it impacts learning with kids. And people say, well, if the computers, they won't be able to figure anything out. No, they learn to do it the way we learn to do it. They can see that there's 3 of these and there's 2 of these, and they can do the math. They can see it graphically. And so it helps them learn whatever learning style they are. And it's a tool that we're just not using. And it can really help them actually understand it. So when the power goes off and the cash register doesn't work, they can make change. So they understand what change is. And they learn that on the iPad, not from a calculator, but from the concepts they can see and touch and feel.
Right. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. I do hope that you continue to remain engaged, even after the Common Core. conversation, Florida needs your engagement. We really do. And so I'll just want to make a statement of 3 more facts and then 3 recommendations that I'll have for you. The first is it's the simple fact that I started out with, that Common Core state standards are just that. They're standards. And they define a set of expectations that students need to meet. Very similar to standards that we've had for decades. They're just expectations that students should meet. The standards, being such, do not dictate curriculum. They don't dictate textbooks. They don't dictate teacher programming and how a teacher engages in the classroom. The standards do not do that. And finally, standards do not give the state government or the federal government any additional information. As I mentioned the website earlier, the dataqualitycampaign.org, please check out the website to see those facts as to why our privacy concerns will be answered there. So because of those facts, I do recommend that you all stay engaged and ask your representatives and ask your senators to pass legislation that reaffirms our desire to protect the privacy of our information and our children's information. That has to be done, Common Core or not. So make sure that we are talking about explicitly protecting children's privacy and information. Secondly, we need to talk about making sure that our representatives and senators state that we reject federal intrusion, federal pressure into having us force us to implement standards or anything else. We need to reassert that authority. Talk to your representatives and senators to do that. And finally, to your point, Dr. Ephraim, the open and transparent process. Talk to your representatives and senators to make sure that when we're having these conversations around standards and around curriculum, it is an open and transparent process. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank everyone. I know it wasn't always comfortable because, you know, we're battling over issues that are very important to people. But I'm just really thankful that we have an opportunity to come together and have these discussions. I know that some days when I come over here to the Civic Center for these political meetings, I wonder who's watching me going to this meeting. You know, it's kind of scary these days. It really is, you know. But I think that we got into some really good information. We go away with some good questions that we need to research further. And I'm serious about asking perhaps Governor Bush to consider gathering with some Floridians to talk about those things in Common Core that we find problematic and see if there's a way to address these things, because as I understand it, this thing's moving forward. In our local school district, as much as we go and complain to our local school district, they can't do anything about it. So if we're going to get any help with regard to those aspects of this program that are problematic, it's going to have to come from someone like Governor Bush, someone at the state level, and from our from our state legislators. So keep researching, keep asking the questions, keep putting pressure on your elected officials, and keep coming out to meetings like this so that we can talk about these issues and learn more about them. Thank you.